My husband spent $1.2 million on the necklace I had wanted for months. By midnight, every gossip site in New York was calling it my anniversary gift. At 1:40 in the morning, a stranger sent me a video of Adrian fastening it around his first love's neck. I watched the clip 3 times before I understood what I was seeing. The blue diamond rested at the hollow of Claire Bennett's throat, bright against the black silk of her dress. Adrian stood behind her on the private terrace of a members-only club, his head bent as he secured the clasp. The skyline glittered beyond them. Through the glass doors, people lifted champagne glasses and laughed. Adrian's voice was low, but the person filming had been close enough to catch every word. "Congratulations. You're finally free." Claire touched the diamond and smiled at him in the reflection of the window. That day was not only my 3rd wedding anniversary. It was also the day Claire's divorce became final. I sat alone at our dining table on the Upper East Side, one hand resting beside a plate of steak that had gone cold hours earlier. The candles had burned down to uneven stubs. In the kitchen, the anniversary cake I had made waited in the refrigerator. Hidden inside the cake was a clear plastic box containing my first ultrasound report. 5 weeks pregnant. Low progesterone. Medication, rest, and a follow-up appointment in 2 weeks to confirm a heartbeat. I had spent the afternoon imagining Adrian cutting into the cake and finding the note I had written. "Happy 3rd anniversary. We're going to have a baby." Adrian was not the kind of man who shouted, cried, or swept people into his arms. At 33, he had already learned to turn every emotion into something controlled and private. He ran Cole Group with the same restraint. Even in the middle of a hostile board meeting, his voice rarely rose. But I had thought he would smile. I had thought, for once, I might see something break through that beautiful, composed face. Instead, I watched him put my necklace on another woman. At 2:30, the front door opened. Adrian stepped into the foyer in a charcoal suit and dark overcoat. He handed his coat to Martha, our house manager, and loosened his tie as he crossed toward the dining room. He stopped when he saw the table. "Why are you still awake?" I looked at him for a few seconds. There was no lipstick on his collar, no nervousness in his expression, no obvious sign that he had spent our anniversary with the woman he had almost loved before me. "I was waiting for you. Something came up." He came closer and touched my cheek with the back of his fingers. "I'm sorry." His hand was cool from the night air. I wondered whether those fingers had brushed Claire's hair away from her neck. "Where's my anniversary gift?" I asked. His hand paused. "I didn't have time to arrange one. I'll make it up to you." "But you already bought it." I held out my palm. "The blue diamond necklace. I love it." Silence stretched between us. Then he said calmly, "It wasn't for you." "Who is it for?" "I bid on it for Daniel. One of his clients collects antique jewelry." Daniel Ross was Adrian's closest friend and the sort of man who attracted enough trouble to make almost any excuse sound possible. Adrian met my eyes without blinking. He had always been a convincing negotiator. Apparently, he was also a convincing liar. "Is that right?" I asked. "Yes." He reached for my hair, an absent gesture he used when he wanted to smooth over tension without discussing it. I moved away. His hands stopped in the air. "Evelyn, I'm tired." When I stood, my legs nearly gave out. I had been sitting for so long that my feet had gone numb. Adrian glanced at the untouched food. "You haven't eaten?" I thought we would eat together. He looked at the cold steak, then took off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. "Sit down. I'll make something." 15 minutes later, he placed a bowl of tomato basil pasta in front of me. It was one of the only meals he cooked himself. In the first year of our marriage, when he came home late and found me still working, he occasionally made the same dish. I had once asked where he learned it. "College," he had said. It was easy and cheap. That night, the pasta tasted exactly as it always had. Comforting. Familiar. A little too much basil. For the first time, I wondered whether even that small tenderness had belonged to someone else before it belonged to me. Upstairs, Adrian showered and got into bed beside me. He slid an arm around my waist and pulled me against his chest. I stiffened. "Not tonight," I said. His grip loosened. "Are you sick?" "My stomach hurts." He frowned. Is your period about to start? My cycle had always begun during the first week of the month. It was the 22nd. After 3 years of marriage, he still did not know. Maybe I said. I did not tell him about the progesterone pills hidden in the bottom drawer of my nightstand. I did not tell him there was a cake in the refrigerator containing the happiest news of my life. I lay awake until morning, listening to his breathing, asking myself whether the video showed a betrayal or merely a terrible mistake. By sunrise, I had decided to give him one chance to tell me the truth. I did not know I would spend the next 2 weeks giving him chance after chance until there was nothing left in me to offer. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Claire arrived at our house the next morning carrying a navy velvet jewelry box. She wore an ivory dress and no visible makeup. Her dark blonde hair fell loosely over one shoulder, and if I had not seen the video, I might have thought she looked fragile after a difficult divorce. Adrian came downstairs before he had finished tying his tie. Claire was sitting in the living room with a glass of iced lemon water. As she stood, the glass tilted and several drops splashed across the back of her hand. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides and caught her wrist. Did that burn you? The concern in his voice was immediate and unguarded. Martha, standing near the sideboard, looked confused. Mr. Cole, it's ice water. Adrian's hand went still. Claire gave a soft laugh. He's always been like this. When it comes to me, he overreacts before he thinks. She said it as though she were sharing an affectionate family story. Adrian released her and stepped back, his expression returning to its usual calm. I stood halfway down the staircase, looking at him. During our first year of marriage, I had burned my stomach with hot oil while trying to cook dinner. Adrian had come into the kitchen, checked that the injury did not require emergency treatment, and told me gently to let the chef finish the meal. At the time, I had believed he was simply not an emotional man. Watching him mistake cold water for a burn because it touched Claire, I finally understood. He was capable of panic. I was simply not the person who caused it. Claire picked up the velvet box and held it toward me. This belongs to you. I did not take it. Adrian said he bought it for Daniel. Her smile faltered. Behind her, Adrian went very still. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Adrian said, I wasn't honest with you last night. Why not? Claire had just finalized a painful divorce. I wanted to give her something to mark a new beginning. On our anniversary? The auction date was not something I chose. His answer was so reasonable that it made me feel unreasonable for being hurt. Claire's mother had worked as legal counsel for the Cole family. 16 years earlier, during an accident on a private yacht, she had died after pulling Adrian from the water. The Cole family paid for Claire's education and living expenses after that. Adrian carried the debt more personally than anyone else. He believed he owed Claire's mother his life. And because Claire had been left behind, he believed he owed part of that life to her. It was a heavy explanation. A respectable one. The kind that made any wife who continued asking questions look jealous and cruel. Was that all it was? I asked. Yes. He did not hesitate. Claire looked between us. I shouldn't have accepted it. I was emotional and Adrian was trying to be kind. I brought it back because the last thing I want is to create trouble in your marriage. Her words were perfect. Still, I saw the way her fingers lingered on the velvet box before she placed it in my hand. I took it because I would not fight over my husband in front of her. After she left, I locked the necklace in the deepest drawer of the storage room. I never wore it. 3 days later, Claire took something from me that could not be locked away. The creative director position at Cole Atelier had been vacant for 8 months. I had been acting in the role while the internal promotion committee completed its review. At 29, I had worked at the company for 6 years, beginning as an intern and moving through every level of the design department. 3 of the collections I led became the brand's best-selling seasonal lines. My team had already started calling me creative director when no executives were around. The formal appointment was supposed to be announced at the quarterly management meeting. Instead, I received an email stating that the position would remain frozen. Claire Bennett had been hired as Senior Vice President of Global Brand Strategy for Cole Group. She would also serve as executive lead for Cole Atelier's 20th anniversary transformation project, which included the next main collection, the European campaign, and our New York Fashion Week presentation. I would report directly to her. Claire was not entirely unqualified. Before her marriage, she had worked for 2 years in brand strategy at a luxury company in London. She had participated in several successful campaigns. But she had been out of the industry for 4 years. More importantly, she had not gone through the full executive hiring process. Her name had not appeared on the original candidate list. Adrian had overridden the recommendations of Human Resources and the Management Committee. That afternoon, he brought her to the design floor himself. Claire will lead the first phase of the group's global brand transformation, he told my team. Cole Atelier's anniversary project will be the flagship initiative. Claire turned to me with a warm smile. I know I have a great deal to learn. Evelyn understands this brand better than anyone, and I hope she'll help me make the project worthy of its history. Every person in the room looked at me. If I objected, I would look bitter toward a newly divorced woman trying to restart her career. If I smiled, I would be helping her stand on the promotion that had been taken from me. Of course, I said. After the introductions, Adrian came into my office and closed the door. I know you're disappointed. I set down the presentation deck I had been reviewing. Do you? The creative director appointment is not canceled. It's delayed. The committee recommended me. You froze the position and put Claire in charge of the largest project in the company's history. She has international brand experience. 2 years of experience, followed by 4 years away. This is a transitional arrangement. Who approved it? For a moment, he said nothing. Then I did. At least he did not hide behind Daniel this time. So you chose her again. This is not personal. Of course it isn't personal to you. I looked at him across my desk. You're not the one who lost anything. He placed a folder in front of me. Inside was a proposed long-term equity award. Cole Group was publicly traded but controlled by the Cole family through a dual-class share structure. Cole Atelier operated as a semi-independent fashion subsidiary. Harold Cole, Adrian's grandfather, had originally suggested a 3% equity grant for me based on my performance. Adrian had raised it to 8%, transferred from his personal holdings, with permanent voting rights through an individual trust. The grant would not be affected by our marriage or any future change in marital status. Lawyers, tax advisors, and the trust team were already preparing the documents. Is this compensation? I asked. No. Then what is it? Recognition of the value you created. His voice was low and steady. Whether or not you are my wife, you earned this. The answer weakened something in me. Would you give Claire your shares if she asked? His brows drew together. No. Why not? Because she is not you. For one dangerous moment, that was enough. Not because of the money. Because he had finally drawn a line between us and told me I stood on the side that mattered. My hand moved to my bag, where the pregnancy report waited. Are we going home together tonight? Yes. I have something important to tell you. His expression softened. I'll end my meeting early. I believed him. I should have known that Claire had not returned to accept one necklace or one job. She had returned to test how many times Adrian would choose her before I finally understood that he always would. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Adrian's car was waiting in the underground garage when I finished work. He stood beside it checking his watch. You're 10 minutes late. A sample came back with the wrong seam construction. I stopped in front of him, fingers closed around the envelope in my bag. My heart beat so hard that I felt foolish for being nervous. Adrian, I need to tell you something. The front passenger window lowered. Claire sat inside. My car is being serviced, she said. We're all going to Harold's for dinner, so Adrian offered me a ride. You don't mind, do you? She was the guest, yet she was sitting in the front seat beside my husband. Adrian did not explain. He did not ask her to move. The words I had been about to say disappeared. Of course not. Our driver, Marcus, opened the rear door for me. Adrian started to follow me into the back seat, but Claire twisted around. Why are you sitting back there? I'll have to turn around the whole way if I want to talk to you. She made it sound like a joke. Adrian looked at me. For 1 second, I waited to see what he would do. Then he got into the back seat beside me. It should have helped. Instead, I felt like a stranger who had been allowed into a conversation built from years I did not share. Claire talked about a professor they both disliked in college, a bar where they had once been caught drinking underage, and a band Adrian used to follow from city to city. Adrian answered in short sentences, but he remembered every detail. Near Harold's estate in Westchester, Claire looked out the window and laughed softly. You really have become more domestic. Adrian glanced up from his phone. What does that mean? On your wedding night, I got into an accident and you forgot you even had a bride. You stayed with me until morning. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. 3 years earlier, Adrian had taken a call shortly after our reception. He told me there was an emergency and left the hotel. I sat in our suite in my wedding dress until sunrise. He returned the following afternoon and never explained where he had been. You were with her? I asked. Claire covered her mouth, performing surprise. You never told her? I'm sorry. I assumed married people told each other everything. Adrian's face hardened. Claire. Enough. The warning came too late. A question that had lived quietly inside me for 3 years had been answered in the cruelest possible way. At dinner, Harold Cole noticed the tension before the first course was cleared. Harold was 78, sharp-eyed, stubborn, and still the person most senior executives feared disappointing. He had built Cole Group from a regional manufacturing company into a global conglomerate and showed little interest in pretending age had softened him. When someone mentioned Claire's new position, he set down his fork. The internal committee recommended Evelyn for creative director, he said to Adrian. Why did you freeze the appointment? The company needs a broader global strategy before making a permanent leadership change. So you place someone who has been out of the industry for 4 years above the person who has actually done the work? Claire's face lost color. Mr. Cole, I never intended to take anything from Evelyn. Harold looked at her. You accepted the role. That was the moment you took it. Grandfather, Adrian said. Don't grandfather me. If you want to make sentimental decisions, do it with your own social calendar. Not with a company that employs thousands of people. Claire pushed back her chair. Excuse me. She left the dining room with tears in her eyes. Adrian remained seated. His father, Richard, frowned. Go after her. She needs time to calm down. Her mother died saving you. She has just gone through a divorce, and now she has been humiliated in front of the family. Don't sit there pretending none of that matters. The mention of her mother changed Adrian's expression. He stood. I watched him walk out. No matter what Claire did, there was always a sentence that could summon him. Her mother died for you. A few minutes later, I followed. The October air had turned cold. Beyond the terrace, the garden paths were lit by low lamps. I heard voices on the other side of a stone wall and stopped before they could see me. I divorced him for you, Claire said through tears. Adrian's reply was hard. You chose him. I made a mistake. That is not my responsibility. I'm back now. I'm married. Marriages end. Mine did. To you, perhaps marriage is temporary. It isn't to me. He rejected her. Relief moved through me so quickly that my knees almost weakened. Then Claire asked, Do you love Evelyn? Silence. The garden seemed to hold its breath with me. Adrian did not answer. Claire's voice softened. Do you still love me? That is none of your business. Again, not an answer. I stepped back before they could find me there. On the drive home, I sat beside Adrian in the dark and asked the question I should have asked before I married him. Why did you choose me? He looked out the window for a long time. Because I wanted to marry you. That is not an answer. After Claire married someone else, I stopped believing intense emotion was a reliable foundation for anything. He spoke carefully, as if explaining a business decision. Then I met you. You were intelligent, stable, independent. You did not try to manage me or make my life into a performance. With you, I believed a marriage could be built on trust and respect. I had known Adrian for 7 years. For the first 3, I admired him from a distance. We began dating after I joined Cole Atelier and spent a year together before he proposed. During that year, he remembered to send a car when I worked late. He brought dinner to the studio. He listened when I talked about fabric and construction, subjects most people found tedious. I had believed those things were love. Maybe to him, they had only been evidence that I was suitable. So you never loved me, I said. You thought I was a sensible person to marry. That isn't what I said. You also didn't say you loved me. He was silent. The silence hurt less than the one in the garden only because I had already expected it. If you still want Claire, we can end this without destroying each other. Adrian turned sharply toward me. I have never considered divorce. His phone vibrated once, then again, then continuously. A photograph appeared on the screen. Claire stood near the edge of her apartment building's roof. The next message read, "If you don't come now, you never have to see me again." Adrian immediately called his assistant, then the police. His voice became clipped and precise as he gave the address and requested a crisis intervention team. When he ended the call, he told Marcus to stop outside a brightly lit hotel. Marcus will take you home. You're going to her. The police are there. She refuses to step away from the ledge. Then let trained professionals handle it. I need to know she's safe. Why does it need to be you? He took my hand. Because if she falls, you will believe it was your fault. His grip tightened. He did not deny it. The hotel entrance was crowded with staff and guests. Marcus would take me home. Adrian was not abandoning me on an empty road or placing me in physical danger. But when he got into another car and left, the result inside me was the same. He chose her. Again. I asked Marcus to drive me to my friend Mia's apartment instead. Mia opened the door in silk pajamas, took one look at my face, and did not ask whether I wanted tea. She poured herself a glass of wine, handed me sparkling water, and said, "Tell me who I need to kill." The laugh that escaped me sounded dangerously close to a sob. Her living room was not empty. A man stood near the windows, putting on his coat. Noah Reed turned when he heard my voice. He had been a year ahead of me in the design program at Columbia and later built a reputation in Paris as a quiet, exacting designer who refused to chase trends. He had returned to the United States that week to start an independent label. "Evelyn," he said. "It's been a long time. 6 years." Mia looked between us. "You two can catch up while I make food." She hasn't eaten. "I'm fine." "You are pregnant and lying badly," Mia said. Noah's eyes moved to me, then away with immediate discretion. "Congratulations," he said gently. I sat on Mia's sofa and pressed a hand to my stomach. "Thank you." He did not ask where my husband was. He did not ask why I looked as if I had been crying. Later, when he was leaving, he paused by the door. "You don't have to make a permanent decision tonight," he said. "Pain does not always demand an immediate answer." I nodded. "But," he added, "you can stop convincing yourself that the pain is unimportant." The next morning, Mia tried to make me stay with her. I insisted on returning home. Part of me still believed Adrian would come back ashamed and finally understand what he had risked. When I entered the house around noon, Claire's suitcase stood in the living room. I heard voices in the kitchen. Adrian was cooking. Claire stood beside him in one of Martha's aprons, handing him ingredients before he asked. He reached for salt. It was already in her hand. He turned toward the sink. She placed a towel beside him. Their movements were small, ordinary, and practiced. They looked less like two people caught in an emotional crisis and more like a couple who had been living together for years. At lunch, Adrian served tomato basil pasta. Claire looked at my plate and smiled. "Do you like it?" I did not answer. "I taught him to make that in college," she said. "He used to cook it for me all the time. Eventually I got tired of it, so he stopped making it so often." My fork became heavy in my hand. On our anniversary, I had eaten that pasta and mistaken it for comfort offered to me. Now I understood it was another memory he had carried from her into our marriage. "When are you leaving my house?" I asked. Claire's smile vanished. "I wasn't safe alone last night." Adrian thought. I asked when you're leaving. Her eyes filled instantly. She turned to Adrian. For once, he did not soften. "My assistant will take you to your apartment after lunch." "You're throwing me out?" "We discussed this last night." He set down his fork. "From now on, if there is an emergency, you contact your doctor, your attorney, or my office. You do not contact me directly. You really don't care what happens to me?" Cole Group will continue honoring its financial commitments to you. That does not give you permission to cross the boundaries of my marriage. Claire stared at him. Then she looked at me as though I had taken something that belonged to her. She left without finishing lunch. For the next week, Adrian came home on time every night. He canceled unnecessary dinners. He cooked. He sat in my studio while I reviewed samples and answered emails. He did not offer dramatic apologies, but his presence felt like an attempt to repair what he had damaged. The trust documents were completed that Friday. 8% of Cole Atelier was legally transferred into my individual trust with permanent voting rights. I signed the final papers in my office and looked at Adrian's signature above mine. It would be easy to call me foolish for softening. But I had loved him for 7 years. Love does not disappear at the moment it becomes humiliating. Sometimes it survives long enough to humiliate you again. I asked Adrian to come with me to a medical appointment the following Saturday. It was also the anniversary of my parents' deaths. After the appointment, I planned to take him to the cemetery and, for the first time, introduce my husband to them. At the clinic, he would see our child's heartbeat. It was the last chance I intended to give our marriage. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I woke before dawn on Saturday to Adrian's voice on the balcony. If she cut her wrist, let the emergency physician treat it. He was speaking quietly, but anger sharpened every word. If she refuses psychiatric evaluation, call her attorney. Stop transferring every threat to me. A pause. Put someone outside her room. Don't let her actually hurt herself. When I woke again, the other side of the bed was empty. His closet door stood open. His watch was gone from the nightstand. I called him from the kitchen. He answered after 6 rings, sounding exhausted. Claire cut her wrist last night. Is it serious? The wound is shallow. I closed my eyes. Do you remember where you were supposed to be this morning? Silence. She is refusing a psychiatric assessment, he said. The doctors are concerned she may try again if she leaves. So, Evelyn, I may not be able to leave yet. I looked at the envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were the cemetery directions, my medical appointment card, and the photograph of my parents I planned to show him. I understand, I said. Have Martha go with you. Or reschedule. I'll make time this week. No, nothing. Take care of Claire. I ended the call before he could hear my voice break. Adults understand choices, even when no one says the word choice aloud. He had decided a shallow cut on Claire's wrist required his presence more than whatever medical appointment his wife had asked him to attend. He did not know I was pregnant, but he knew I had said it was important. That should have mattered. I drove myself. The morning was gray, the streets wet from overnight rain. I kept both hands on the wheel and tried to focus on traffic, but Adrian's sentence repeated in my mind. I may not be able to leave. A dark SUV entered my lane without warning. Normally, I would have reacted in time. That morning, I saw it half a second too late. I hit the brake. The tires screamed. Metal struck metal with a violence that erased every other sound. The airbag exploded against my face. My forehead hit something hard. Pain shot through my skull, followed by a deep cramp low in my abdomen. For several seconds, I could not breathe. Then I felt warmth between my legs. No, I whispered. My hands shook so badly that I dropped my phone twice before I managed to call Adrian. No answer. I called again. And again. On the 4th call, someone picked up. Evelyn, Claire said softly. Adrian can't deal with anything right now. For a moment, I thought the crash had damaged my hearing. Give him the phone. He's with the psychiatrist. I learned later that Adrian had left his phone on a chair outside the consultation room. Claire saw my name flashing across the screen and took it without permission. At the time, all I knew was that she had his phone and he was with her. Claire, I said, forcing air into my lungs. Give him the phone. Why do you always think that because you need him, he has to come running back to you? There was no anger in her voice. That made it worse. She sounded patient, almost kind, as though explaining something obvious to a child. A horn blared somewhere behind me. Someone shouted that an ambulance was coming. My vision blurred. I'm bleeding, I said. I do not know whether she heard me. The line went dead. I curled forward as far as the seatbelt allowed and put both hands over my stomach. Please, I whispered to the life inside me. Please stay. The paramedics found my phone and called the first emergency contact listed. Adrian did not answer. They called the second. Mia arrived at the hospital before I woke. When I opened my eyes, the room was white and quiet except for the soft electronic pulse of a monitor. My head throbbed beneath a bandage, and 4 lines ran into the back of my hand. For one terrible second, I could not remember why I was there. Then my hand went to my abdomen. Mia caught my wrist. Don't move too fast. The baby. Her eyes filled. The baby is still there. I stared at her. Still. A doctor entered before she could answer. She introduced herself as Dr. Patel and pulled a chair beside the bed. The ultrasound detected an intrauterine pregnancy, she said. There is cardiac activity, but you have bleeding consistent with a threatened miscarriage. The next 48 hours are important. We are giving you medication and monitoring your hormone levels. Is the heartbeat normal? For this stage, it is present, which is encouraging. But I cannot promise you an outcome today. My throat closed. Did the crash hurt the baby? Early pregnancies are protected by the pelvis, and your injuries appear relatively minor. Stress and bleeding can occur for several reasons. The most important thing now is rest and follow-up. She spoke carefully, refusing to give me false certainty. After she left, I turned my face toward the window. Mia sat beside me in silence. You can say it, I whispered. Say what? That you warned me. This is not the moment I say I warned you. Her voice shook. This is the moment I decide whether I can get away with setting your husband's car on fire. A sound escaped me. Half laugh, half sob. Then I started crying so hard that the monitor alarm changed rhythm. Mia climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed and held me. I called him, I said into her shoulder. I called him over and over. I know. The paramedics told me. She answered. Mia's arms tightened. Claire answered his phone. What did she say? I repeated the words. Why do you always think that because you need him, he has to come running back to you? Mia went completely still. He doesn't know about the baby, I said. I was supposed to tell him today. You do not have to protect him from what he chose not to know. I gave him so many chances. I know. The necklace. The job. The wedding night. The roof. I kept thinking each one was the last time. Mia pulled back and held my face between her hands. Then let this be the last time. I looked at her. Outside the window, rain streaked the glass. Somewhere in the corridor, a newborn began to cry. The sound was small and furious and alive. I thought of the report hidden in the cake. The appointment card in my wrecked car. The way I had spent years translating Adrian's absence into patience, his coldness into dignity, and his divided loyalty into responsibility. I had loved him so faithfully that I had made a religion of explaining why he hurt me. Mia, I said. Yes, I want a divorce. She searched my face. Are you sure? The answer came without effort. Yes. For the first time in weeks, breathing did not hurt. I stayed overnight for observation. By the next afternoon, the bleeding had slowed. Dr. Patel allowed me to leave on strict instructions, bed rest, medication, and a repeat ultrasound in 48 hours. No one could yet tell me whether the pregnancy would continue. I did not call Adrian. When Mia drove me home, Martha met us in the foyer and gasped at the bandage on my forehead. Mrs. Cole, what happened? A car accident. Does Mr. Cole know? He will. I went upstairs and took 4 suitcases from the storage closet. 3 years of marriage had filled the house with more of me than I realized. Dresses in the closet, books on the nightstand, fabric samples in the studio, framed photographs from trips that had not gone as planned. I packed only what was mine. I left the jewelry Adrian had given me in its safe. I left the blue diamond necklace in the storage room. I left our wedding portrait on the wall. By evening, 4 suitcases stood near the bedroom door. Adrian returned just after 6. I heard his steps on the stairs, faster than usual. He appeared in the doorway, took in the luggage, and then saw the bandage on my head. For the first time since I had known him, his composure disappeared completely. What happened to you? I was in a car accident. When? This morning. Why didn't anyone tell me? I looked at him. I tried. He froze. Claire answered your phone. His face changed. She touched my phone? It doesn't matter anymore. He came toward me. Evelyn, let me explain. Did her wrist require stitches? He stopped. Did she need surgery? The doctors were concerned about her mental state. You knew she was manipulating you, and you stayed anyway. She was unstable. I was in a wreck. The words came out quietly. I am pregnant. The crash caused bleeding. The doctors said they would need 48 hours to know whether the baby would survive. Every trace of color left his face. Pregnant? Yes. How long? 5 weeks on our anniversary. He stared at me as though the room had shifted beneath him. You said your stomach hurt that night. Yes. And the important thing you wanted to tell me at the office. I tried 3 times. I counted them because he seemed unable to breathe. The anniversary dinner. The parking garage. The appointment this morning. He closed his eyes. I will take you to the follow-up. No. Evelyn. No. I am the child's father. Father is not a title you remember only after someone tells you what you missed. I placed the divorce petition on the table between us. I am tired, Adrian. There will not be another time. You said that last week. This is different. Every time is different to you. The result is always the same for me. He looked at the papers, but did not touch them. I did not sleep with her. I almost laughed. Do you think that is the only way to betray a marriage? I never chose her as my wife. No. You chose me for the title and her for every emergency, every memory, and every moment that required your heart. That is not true. Whenever we needed you at the same time, you went to her. Every single time. His jaw tightened. I have never wanted a divorce. I do. For several seconds, he stared at me. Then something defensive and ugly entered his expression. Is this because Noah came back? I could not believe what I had heard. What? He drove you from Mia's. He was there when you needed someone. So you think I am divorcing you because of another man? I am trying to understand why you are doing this now. The slap sounded louder than I expected. Adrian's head turned slightly. A red mark appeared across his cheek. My palm burned. I loved you for 7 years, I said, and the tears I had held back finally fell. You still do not know who I loved. Mia arrived with movers 10 minutes later. Adrian did not try to physically stop me. He stood in the hallway while strangers carried my suitcases down the stairs. At the front door, he said my name once. I did not turn around. 48 hours later, Mia sat beside me during the follow-up ultrasound. The room was dark. I held my breath until the technician pointed to a flicker on the screen. There, she said. Cardiac activity. A sound came from me that I did not recognize. Mia gripped my hand and cried openly. The pregnancy was stable for the moment. I did not tell Adrian. I had given him 3 chances to be the first person who knew about our child. He had missed all of them. Through my attorney, I paid the contractual fee required to end my executive transition period early and formally resigned from Cole Atelier. Then I moved to Boston. Noah was building an independent label and offered me a position as creative partner, not employee. I need someone who can decide what this brand is, he said. Not someone who executes my decisions. I studied the partnership documents before I looked at him. Why are you helping me? I am not rescuing you. You know what I mean. I see your ability. I need it. That is a business answer. He paused. The personal answer is that I care about you, but I will not turn help into a debt and wait for you to repay me with affection. The words affected me more than any declaration could have. I accepted because the work respected me, not because Noah might love me, not because I wanted to punish Adrian. For the first time in years, I made a decision without measuring how it would affect my husband. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I did not witness what happened in the Upper East Side house after I left. What I know came from Martha, legal records, the independent corporate investigation, and, much later, Adrian himself. 3 days after my departure, Martha cleaned the refrigerator. She found the anniversary cake pushed behind a row of untouched groceries. It was already 2 weeks old. She intended to throw it away until her knife struck the plastic box hidden inside. The box contained my pregnancy report and the note I had written. Happy 3rd anniversary. We're going to have a baby. The date on the report was the same day Adrian had fastened the blue diamond around Claire's neck. According to Martha, Adrian read the note and sat down on the kitchen floor. She had worked for the Cole family for 20 years and had never seen him do anything so undignified. He called me 47 times. I answered none of them. He called my attorney, who sent a single written response. Miss Hart is receiving necessary medical care. Further information regarding her pregnancy is private and unrelated to the current divorce filing. Adrian knew I had been pregnant. He knew the accident had caused bleeding. He did not know whether the pregnancy had survived. He knew where my lawyer worked and could communicate about the divorce. He did not know where I lived in Boston. For several weeks, he attended every industry event where he thought I might appear. He contacted mutual friends and requested one private conversation through my attorney. I refused each request. He did not use Cole Group security to locate me. He did not obtain my medical records or follow Mia. My attorney had warned him that any attempt to use corporate resources to control my movements would result in an application for a protective order. For once, he respected a boundary he did not like. The police report and emergency room documents entered the divorce record because my attorney needed to explain why an early mediation date had to be postponed. Adrian saw the precise timeline. At 10:18 a.m., I called him from the wreck. At 10:41, paramedics transported me to the hospital. At 11:03, the emergency department documented a threatened miscarriage. During those same minutes, he was inside a psychiatric consultation room with Claire. The corporate investigation later established that Claire had taken his phone from the chair outside the room and answered my call. She admitted what she said. I wanted her to understand that when it mattered, you still chose me. She also admitted arranging the anniversary video. She had asked a private assistant to film the moment Adrian gave her the necklace and send it anonymously to me. When Adrian confronted her, she reportedly said, "You came every time I called." What else was I supposed to believe? He removed her from the anniversary project immediately, but did not use his personal authority to erase her from the company overnight. Cole Group opened an independent investigation into her hiring, conflicts of interest, use of company data, and conduct toward employees. Adrian recused himself from the investigative committee. That mattered to me more than a dramatic firing would have. For the first time, he understood that protecting Claire from consequences was not compassion. It was participation. Harold also told him the truth about my equity grant. The original proposal had been 3%. Adrian had increased it to 8% and demanded permanent voting rights. You told yourself she was merely practical, Harold later told me. But men do not surrender control to women they consider temporary. He had feelings. He was simply arrogant enough to assume he could recognize them whenever it became convenient. I did not find that comforting. A feeling discovered after someone leaves does not undo the loneliness that forced her to go. In Boston, my life became smaller before it became better. The apartment Noah's business manager found for me was clean but nearly empty. For the first month, I slept on a mattress while waiting for furniture. I woke nauseated most mornings and worked from the floor because sitting upright in a chair made the dizziness worse. Mia came every weekend she could. She filled my refrigerator, labeled containers with reheating instructions, and threatened Noah if he scheduled meetings before 10. Noah ignored the threat but moved every meeting to 10:30. He never asked for details about my marriage. When I volunteered them, he listened without telling me what I should have done. Our new company began with 4 people, Noah, me, a technical designer named Celeste, and a production manager named Priya. We rented 2 rooms in a converted warehouse and built our first mood boards on folding tables. For the first time in 6 years, I worked without anyone mentioning my husband. No one introduced me as a Cole executive. No one assumed Adrian had approved my decisions. When I rejected a fabric or changed a silhouette, the team asked why. They did not ask whether Noah agreed. I had thought freedom would feel dramatic. Most days, it felt like choosing thread without explaining myself. 3 months after I filed, the court scheduled our first mediation in Manhattan. By then, my stomach had begun to show beneath loose dresses. I returned to New York the night before and stayed with Mia. You can still let the lawyers do all the talking, she said as she helped me choose a dark navy dress. You owe him nothing. I need to hear what he asks for. And if he asks for you? I looked at my reflection. Then he will hear no from me directly. The mediation took place in a private conference room at a family law firm. My attorney, Rachel Green, sat on my right. Adrian entered with his attorney and stopped just inside the door. His eyes went immediately to my stomach. He had known I was pregnant. He had not known our child was alive. For a few seconds, no one moved. His face lost color. He gripped the back of a chair as if he needed it to remain standing. The baby survived, I said before he could ask. His eyes closed. When he opened them again, they were wet. Why didn't you tell me? Rachel shifted beside me, ready to intervene. I answered before she could. I tried to tell you I was pregnant 3 times. You missed everyone. After that, whether the baby survived was not information you were entitled to receive before I was ready. He sat down slowly. I asked through the attorneys, and my attorney answered what she was authorized to answer. I thought the baby might be gone. For 48 hours, I thought that too. His gaze dropped to the table. The mediator, a gray-haired woman named Susan, allowed the silence to settle before beginning. We reviewed property first. I would retain my individual assets, my coal atelier shares, and the income generated by the trust. Adrian would keep the Upper East Side house and all other Cole family property. I waived any claim to additional spousal support. His attorney looked surprised. Adrian did not. She never wanted the money, he said quietly. I did not respond. We moved to residence. I intended to remain in Boston. Adrian agreed not to demand that I return to New York. Then we reached the child. I am not asking for a custody order before the birth, Adrian said. I understand that would be premature. Good, Rachel replied. But I want acknowledgement that I am the father and that I intend to be involved. I looked at him. Being biologically involved is not the same as being reliable. I know. Do you? His jaw tightened, but he did not defend himself. I am in therapy, he said. Twice a week. That surprised me. For what? Guilt. Boundaries. The belief that being responsible for Claire meant being available to her without limit. He paused. And the way I used competence and money to avoid emotional responsibility. Susan glanced between us. Mr. Cole, what are you asking Ms. Hart to agree to today? Nothing beyond communication about major medical events and the opportunity to demonstrate that I can be a father after the child is born. You will not use your family name, wealth, or legal team to force me back to New York, I said. I will not. You will not demand access to my appointments. No. You will not treat the baby as a reason for us to reconcile. His face tightened. I understand that becoming a father does not make me your husband again. You are still legally my husband. Not for much longer. There was no accusation in his voice. Only grief. It would have moved me once. That day, I let it exist without taking responsibility for easing it. He agreed to almost every financial term. His attorney requested a short period to review the final language governing the trust and future child-related expenses. Rachel accepted. When the formal discussion ended, Adrian remained seated. When is your next appointment? He asked. That is not part of today's agreement. I know. Then why are you asking? Because I want to be there. You wanted to be somewhere else the last time. The sentence landed visibly. He looked at me for a long moment. If you ever choose to tell me the time, I will wait in the lobby. I will not enter unless you invite me. I picked up my bag. I am not promising anything. I know. Several days later, Rachel forwarded a short handwritten note from him. There was no check, no jewelry, no speech about our history. If you are willing to let me know the date, I will wait in the hospital lobby. If you do not want to see me, I will leave. I did not answer. A month later, Mia accidentally mentioned one of my appointment dates while arguing with Daniel on the phone. Daniel told Adrian. When I arrived at the clinic, Adrian was sitting in the farthest corner of the lobby. He stood when he saw me but did not approach. I went into the examination room alone. The ultrasound showed a healthy developing baby. I listened to the heartbeat, fast and insistent, and cried quietly into the paper covering the examination table. When I came back out, Adrian was still waiting. He did not ask for the image. He did not ask whether he could touch my stomach. "Are you both all right?" he asked. "Yes." Relief crossed his face. "Good." Then he left. After that, he asked for appointment dates through our attorneys. Sometimes I gave no response. Sometimes Rachel sent him only a brief medical update. He never appeared without permission again. Respecting my boundary did not erase what he had done. But it was the first form of change that did not require me to believe a promise. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Noah and I did not use a single design I had created while employed by Cole Atelier. That decision was partly ethical and partly legal. Work made within the scope of my employment could belong to the company, even if the original sketches came from my hand. I had no interest in building a new life on an ownership dispute. We started from nothing. Every drawing for our first full collection was created in Boston after my resignation. Every fabric order, pattern revision, and fitting was documented. At Rachel's recommendation, we established a rigorous intellectual property process from the beginning: cloud timestamps, notarized concept sheets, recorded design meetings, supplier contracts, and version-controlled digital files. At first, the procedures felt excessive for a 4-person company. 6 months later, they saved us. Our debut capsule performed better than expected, and we were invited to present a full collection in the Emerging Designers program at New York Fashion Week. 2 weeks before the show, photographs appeared online comparing our unreleased pieces to samples from Cole Atelier's anniversary collection. The silhouettes were strikingly similar. A sculpted ivory coat with an asymmetrical color. A black evening dress built around folded panels that resembled flower petals. A series of deep blue pieces inspired by antique-cut stones. The irony of the blue collection did not escape me. Anonymous posts claimed I had stolen confidential designs before leaving Cole Atelier. By noon, entertainment sites had turned the accusation into a cleaner headline. Billionaire's ex-wife steals fashion secrets to launch rival brand. Several buyers requested explanations. One department store paused its purchase order. A sponsor asked whether we planned to withdraw from Fashion Week. Then Claire gave an interview. She did not directly accuse me. She only said, "Some people leave a company with more than personal belongings. I trust the appropriate process will determine the truth." The sentence was designed to sound cautious while giving the public permission to convict me. Noah closed his laptop and looked at me across the studio. "We can postpone." "No. Evelyn, this could swallow the show. If we postpone, everyone will decide the accusation is true before the evidence is reviewed." Priya came in carrying printed screenshots. "Our sample room says only 6 people had access to the full fitting archive." "Then we start there," I said. For the next 36 hours, we treated the accusation as an investigation rather than a scandal. Our files proved that the collection had been created months after I left Cole Atelier. The first concept sketch predated Cole Atelier's digital project folder by 6 weeks. Our fabric orders came before the competing samples appeared in the company's system. Still, those records proved our timeline, not how Cole Atelier obtained similar designs. The answer came from a shared sample workshop in New York. Because our company was small, we contracted specialized construction work to several independent studios. One of those studios had also performed overflow work for Cole Atelier. A freelance production coordinator connected to Claire's project had requested access to our fitting room under the false claim that she was checking equipment availability for a future Cole contract. During that visit, she photographed partial samples, material cards, and technical silhouettes. The images did not include complete internal construction, which explained why Cole Atelier's versions resembled ours at first glance, but failed in crucial details. The ivory coat pulled incorrectly across the shoulder. The petal dress used the wrong grain direction. The blue evening gown copied the outline, but not the internal support that allowed the original to move. Claire had copied what she could see without understanding why it worked. Our attorney obtained sworn statements from the sample room staff. A forensic audit placed the photographs on a device used by the coordinator and linked later file transfers to the Cole Atelier project account. The night before our public response, I sat alone in the studio surrounded by evidence boards. Mia arrived with takeout and found me staring at the anniversary video on my phone. I had not watched it in months. "Why are you looking at that?" she asked. "Because this started with her showing me she could take something I loved and make me watch." Mia put the food down. "And now?" I deleted the video. "Now she's going to watch me keep what is mine." We applied for emergency arbitration through the Fashion Industry Association and announced a public evidence briefing. The room was crowded with buyers, journalists, designers, and several attorneys from Cole Group. Cameras lined the back wall. I wore a simple black suit from our own collection. No Cole jewelry. No wedding ring. Noah stood off stage. He offered to share the presentation. I told him I needed to do it myself. I began with the original concept file. "This collection was created after I resigned from Cole Atelier," I said. "Cole Group did not commission it, participate in its development, or own any part of it." A screen behind me displayed the first timestamp. I walked the audience through every stage. Sketches, material orders, pattern drafts, fitting videos, digital file histories. Then I placed the Cole Atelier creation dates beside ours. 6 weeks later, I showed the photograph recovered from the production coordinator's device and the access log proving when she entered our sample room. Finally, I placed the two ivory coats side by side on dress forms. From a distance, they looked similar. Up close, the difference was unmistakable. I opened the lining of ours and showed the internal construction. "A silhouette can be photographed," I said. "A design cannot be understood from a photograph alone." I moved to the copied version. "This seam has been forced to imitate an exterior shape without the structure that created it. That is why the shoulder collapses." Questions came quickly. A reporter asked whether I believed Claire had targeted me because of our personal history. "The evidence concerns professional misconduct," I said. "I will not use my marriage to distract from it." Another asked whether Adrian had helped me obtain Cole Group records. "No. My team established our creation timeline independently. Cole Group's records were produced through its investigation and the arbitration process." "Do you believe Mr. Cole knew about the copying?" "I have seen no evidence that he did. I have seen evidence that his earlier decision to bypass normal hiring controls gave Ms. Bennett authority she should not have had. I did not protect him. I also did not accuse him of something he had not done." By the time the briefing ended, the story had changed. I was no longer the billionaire's ex-wife accused of theft. I was a designer who had documented her work so thoroughly that an international company could not bury it. The next day, Cole Group's independent committee released its preliminary findings. The report confirmed that our files predated the Cole Atelier project and that a contractor connected to Claire had improperly accessed our samples. Adrian held a press conference that afternoon. I watched from the Boston studio with my team. He stood alone at the podium. "The evidence confirms that Evelyn Hart and her team are the original creators of the disputed collection," he said. "Cole Group's prior executive appointment and project oversight created serious conflicts of interest. I approved that appointment. I accept direct management responsibility." A reporter asked whether Claire had deceived him personally. "This is not a story about my private disappointment," Adrian replied. "It is a failure of corporate judgment for which I was responsible." He announced that he would resign as chair of Cole Atelier and transfer operational control to an independent executive selected by the board. He did not call himself another victim. He did not mention our marriage. He accepted a consequence that cost him authority, not merely comfort. That evening, our Fashion Week presentation went forward. Backstage, models moved through clouds of steam and hairspray. Priya shouted about a missing shoe. Celeste repaired a hem with less than 2 minutes before the final walk. The chaos felt honest and alive. When the last model stepped onto the runway, I stood behind the curtain listening to applause build. Noah touched my shoulder. "Go." I walked out for the bow. The lights were so bright that the audience became a dark field of faces. Near the back, in the last row, I saw Adrian. He was not seated with Cole executives or reporters. He had come alone. He applauded, but did not stand, did not wave, and did not try to catch my attention. After the show, he did not come backstage. He sent one message. Congratulations. That place was always yours. I read it twice. I did not reply. But I did not delete it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. My divorce became final during the 7th month of my pregnancy. There was no dramatic courthouse scene. Rachel called to confirm the judge had signed the order. I was standing in the studio eating crackers over a cutting table because the baby had decided lunch was unacceptable. You're legally Evelyn Hart again, Rachel said. I looked around the room. I never stopped being Evelyn Hart. She laughed. Fair point. Adrian sent no flowers. He sent a copy of the final decree with a handwritten note. I am sorry I understood your value only after forcing you to prove you could live without me. I placed the note in a drawer. During the remaining months of my pregnancy, he continued to ask about appointments through the communication schedule our attorneys established. I allowed him to receive medical summaries and, twice, to sit in the clinic lobby. At the second appointment, the baby kicked while I was walking past him. I stopped instinctively and put a hand to my stomach. His eyes followed the movement. Is she moving? He asked. We had learned the baby was a girl 2 weeks earlier. I had allowed Rachel to tell him. Yes. He stayed where he was. May I? The question was so quiet that I almost pretended not to hear. I thought of how many times he had assumed access to my patience, my home, my forgiveness. Then I took his hand and placed it against the side of my stomach. Our daughter kicked once, hard. Adrian's face changed. He laughed, one stunned breath, and then his eyes filled. I removed his hand. Thank you, he said. That was all. He did not use the moment to ask me to come back. 2 weeks before my due date, I woke at 3 in the morning with steady contractions. Mia was in Chicago for work. Noah drove me to the hospital while I timed the pain with an app and insulted every driver who failed to use a turn signal. At the hospital, the baby's heart rate began to drop during contractions. After several hours, the obstetrician recommended an emergency cesarean section. Mia called from the airport, frantic because her return flight had been delayed. Do you want me to call Adrian? She asked. I looked at Noah, who stood near the window giving me as much privacy as a hospital room allowed. I thought about the difference between needing a husband and allowing a father to know his child was being born. Yes, I said. Call him. Adrian drove from New York to Boston while I was in surgery. He arrived after the doors had closed. He did not demand to enter. He did not invoke his legal rights or the Cole name. He sat outside and waited. Our daughter was born small and furious. She cried immediately, then developed breathing difficulty and was taken to the neonatal intensive care unit for observation. When I woke, my body felt heavy and distant. Mia had finally arrived and sat on one side of the room. Adrian sat in the chair farthest from my bed. He looked as though he had not breathed in hours. It's a girl, he said, his voice breaking. The doctors believe she'll be all right. She needs help breathing for a little while. I closed my eyes. Tears slipped toward my ears. Did you see her? Through the glass. I didn't go in. I waited for your permission. That answer mattered. He had spent years believing good intentions gave him the right to decide what happened around me. Now he waited. I held out my hand. He crossed the room carefully and took it. The moment his fingers closed around mine, he began to cry. Not politely. Not with the single controlled tear of a man in a film. His shoulders shook. He lowered his head over our joined hands and fought for breath. It was the first time I had ever seen him completely undone. I'm sorry, he said. I know it is not enough. I know there is no apology that gives you back the day you were alone in that car. I did not tell him it was all right. It was not. I have no right to ask you to return, he continued. But if she needs me, and if you allow it, I will be here. I will not make you carry my role too. Our daughter stayed in the NICU for 2 days and then came to my room. We named her Ella Hartcole. She did not belong only to the family whose wealth would appear beside her name. She belonged to me too. For the first 3 months, Adrian visited Boston according to a written schedule. He rented an apartment nearby instead of assuming he could stay with me. He learned to warm bottles, change diapers, wash pump parts, and hold Ella upright through reflux. The first time she screamed for 40 minutes, he did not hand her back and say she wanted her mother. He walked the length of the room until she slept against his chest. He never entered my apartment without knocking, even when he knew the door was unlocked. He did not make decisions and explain them afterward. When he disagreed, he asked. Change was slower and less romantic than regret. That was why I trusted it more. A year after Ella's birth, Adrian and I were still divorced. Claire had settled claims involving trade secret misuse, workplace retaliation, and unauthorized access to private communications. She permanently left Cole Group and entered long-term psychiatric treatment. I did not celebrate her collapse. For too long, every person around Claire had treated her pain as permission. Consequences were not cruelty. They were the first boundary no one could negotiate away for her. Noah remained my business partner. He eventually told me that he had loved me in college and that leaving for Paris had been easier than watching me marry Adrian. Why tell me now? I asked. Because hiding it began to feel dishonest, he said. Not because I expect an answer. I don't have one to give. I know. You just left a relationship that made you disappear inside it. I am not interested in becoming another man asking you to choose before you're ready. Our label entered 20 specialty department stores during its second year. I appeared in trade magazines under my own name. Buyers asked about construction, materials, and creative direction rather than my ex-husband. I was Evelyn Hart. Designer. Partner. Mother. On Ella's first birthday, our apartment filled with balloons, cake, and people who loved her loudly. Mia bought a dress so impractical that Ella stained it within 11 minutes. Noah gave her a set of wooden blocks shaped like buildings. Harold came from New York and allowed Ella to pull his glasses off repeatedly without complaint. Adrian stayed after everyone left. He washed bottles while I collected wrapping paper. He packed toys into baskets and carried the folding chairs downstairs. At the door, he put on his coat and hesitated. What? I asked. He looked nervous. I had seen him negotiate acquisitions worth billions without looking nervous. Would you have dinner with me next Saturday? We have dinner with Ella twice a week. Not with Ella. Just us. He did not mention reconciliation. He did not say we owed it to our daughter. He stood in the hallway like a man asking a woman on a first date, aware that she could close the door. Once, I had loved him for 7 years and spent all my patience waiting for him to turn toward me. Then I learned that love should not require a person to abandon herself as proof. I looked at the man he had been and the man he was trying slowly to become. All right, I said. One dinner. A small smile appeared. I understand. That is not a promise. I know. I closed the door and returned to my home. I did not return to my old marriage. I did not promise that I would love Adrian again. I only allowed a man who had finally learned respect, boundaries, and responsibility to begin again from outside my door. Whether he would ever reach my side was no longer his decision. This time, it was mine.